Hey everybody, my name is Aries Webb Williams. Thank you so much for joining SIS TV for this wonderful interview with Dela Agbottah. She is with us and our partner SAP, and we're looking so much forward to listening to her story and her career journey, as well as learning more about SAP. So, Dela, we're going to have you just go ahead and introduce yourself.
First, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. But I'm based in Dallas, Texas, so I grew up here. I grew up in Fort Worth, Irving, so we're in my hometown.
Yes.
My mom is originally from Denton, Texas, and my dad is from Ghana. But I went to Oklahoma State University. I got my bachelor's degree in communications there. And then shortly after, I started interning at SAP. So I've been there ever since.
Nice. Okay, so you started out as an intern. I know I've read a little bit of your background, so I know that you've been there, has it been about 5 years now?
Almost 6 years.
So you started as an intern. Okay, this is going to be very important, I think, for the SIS audience, because a lot of our members are people either wanting to get into sales or early career sales. And I think it's important for people to know, like, the journey, you know. And when you were intern, what were you doing as far as your first role with SAP?
So it's funny when people, have me trace back to my first time at SAP. So when I started, my boss was actually on vacation for 2 weeks in Singapore. So
Oh, wow.
I was kind of thrown into the role, but I was a field marketing intern. So I helped support our sales teams, helping drive demand. I was building campaigns, events. And so I started doing that for about 3 months.
Okay. And then what happened after the 3-month period?
Yeah, so throughout my career, I moved into a full-time role supporting our HCM solution. So I was the marketing lead there. And then shortly after, I became the Southwest field marketing lead. So still doing the same thing, driving demand, building pipeline and campaigns, but just at a larger scale. So I worked with our large enterprise teams.
So marketing. We got 3 marketing roles so far.
I know.
And so now you are in sales as an account executive. And what's the official title? Is it?
So it's senior industry account executive. So I work with our large enterprise accounts, so specifically supporting our dormant net new. So it's customers who have no SAP or no install base. So it's a very much a go-getter role. It's true sales, in my opinion. You're able to really just educate companies and organizations on what we do. And so I love that every sales cycle and every year has been completely different for me.
Okay, so I think one of the things I want to highlight is that you've been at the company for 5 years. You started out in marketing, which I think this is also important for our members as well, because we may be in a different part of the business right now, right? And maybe this is really good to learn about what transferable skills you needed to move into a sales role. And obviously you were in marketing, so like you said, you were enabling sales teams and you kind of had that experience. But can you talk a little bit more about how marketing helped you get into this sales space?
Yeah. So when I first started in marketing, I was early on in my career, so you don't know what you don't know. So I thought I was going to be in marketing for years, but working at SAP, you start to realize so many people have moved into different verticals. And, for example, I've had 3 positions in the past couple of years. A lot of my colleagues have moved around. So they encourage that continuous learning. And so when I started interning, I knew, okay, hey, this sales could be something for me. And so while I was in that role, I didn't see it as, a position I was stuck in. I used that as an opportunity to continue to just understand how we went to market, understand what a day-to-day looked like for a sales account executive. And so that period between like a year and a half, I made sure that I was preparing myself for what was to come in the sales role. And so I also used that time to really network. So like when I started, I was forced to work with the sales leaders. And so I used that opportunity to just, I call it, build my board of directors. My boss always said, make sure that, you're not just sitting in your position, but you're using a coach, for personal or career-wise. You can use a mentor and then also seek out executives to help you really build that knowledge and strategize on how you're going to grow your career. And so I always try to continue to grow my board of directors, but using that time in marketing was so crucial. You build strong communication skills, understanding how we work with our customers and really building a point of view on how you're going to position.
Okay, so you did all of this in marketing, you built your board of directors, and I would like to know, and for you to share with our members, what the appeal for sales was, because it seemed like you were doing really good with marketing. So what was the thing? I want you to keep it real. I know that there's a lot of pluses to sales, but I don't think a lot of people really realize that. So first thing I want to know is, what was the appeal?
Okay.
And then were there any fears to getting into sales also?
Okay. So there were a couple of things. Like, I'm going to be honest. Initially, the potential and how much you could make. So
yes,
that was a huge factor. Being in marketing, a lot of the positions, the executives held those positions for years. So I didn't really feel like there was an opportunity for me to grow as quick as I could in sales and financially, educationally. So that was a big factor. And then also I felt like I didn't have a lot of tech experience. I didn't have a lot of software background, but I understood that was something that I could kind of learn while I was in that marketing role. And so I was nervous. I felt like I would have that gap between, okay, I don't have the sales experience, but also I came to find out really quickly that it was really just important to have a strong understanding of how businesses run and how they drive revenue and having that knowledge. And so for me, being in marketing, I work closely with these organizations and companies to understand what really, drove growth for them. And so that was something that was transferable and helped me feel confident moving into the role. But at the same time, you don't know what you don't know. And so I took that leap of faith, but it's definitely been
it is a
rewarding.
leap of faith, right? Yeah. Like, I think for anyone who does that, and I'm back on the operations side of the business now, but I was in sales like 2 years ago. I transitioned back over more into like a consulting role, but I'm still client facing and doing those different things. And that was my original background. When I got into sales, it was a leap for me to be like, okay, this is, me was like the quotas and all of that. But I think similar to what you just said, it's like, I knew that I like solving problems for customers. So I do feel that if you come in it with that mindset and knowing that I'm here for this customer to help them solve whatever their issue is or what they're trying to create, help them create that, then your mindset is going to be a lot different, in how you look at business.
And every day is so different. I get bored very easily. And so I love the challenge. I love being able to create my own schedule, essentially. And that freedom to me, you have to have the discipline, of course, to make sure you're hitting your targets and you're being productive. But it's been rewarding for me.
And so, okay, you got in. I love this because it's like, what it says to me about SAP is that there's opportunity, right? There is areas within the company that, okay, I'm in marketing right now, but hey, I want to go into sales. And there's probably other, areas within the business as well. So we could kind of pivot back, but are there certain programs that you know about at SAP that maybe like someone who's fresh who wants to come into sales, or maybe something similar to what you did? Are there other programs for people?
Absolutely. We have what we call our Sales Academy. It's an educational program where they bring in, I think it's less than 3% of like the applicants, and they have an opportunity to educate themselves and then also get that field experience. So that's going to be something that's going to be on our job board. But at the same time, I also think that there's so many other organizations and programs that people can leverage. Specifically internally, I love to support and join organizations. We call them employee networking groups. And so like our BIN network, our Black Employee Network, and our Business Women's Network, it really creates a community where it's not just, your fast-paced day-to-day job, but it creates an opportunity where you can come together in community, no matter your race, your background, and really, get to network and work with other people inside the company.
Yeah, because that internal networking is super important. I think people do not appreciate that as much as they should, when they're first probably coming into like a corporate space. It's like, that's something I tell young women that are getting into business for the first time or they're graduating out of college. And I'm like, you need to network as much as possible, internally and externally, right? So not just internally, but also be a part of some other organizations that are outside of the company as well. Because you just never know, like, how someone, you might meet your mentor outside of the company. You might meet, someone else. And so I do think that also that's a big way of finding out what is opening up in other areas of the business as well, right? So if I'm in the women's group, then I might be talking to my friend over here and she's like, girl, we're about to open up, a rec for this. And then next thing you know, you're over there. So I think that's really cool. And it says a lot about a company that has multiple layers to it. It's not just this one role that everybody has. And, you can stay there for a long time.
And that's what I love about the SAP and SIS partnership, coming together like the SIS and Sales conference that we had in New York last month. That was such an inspiring event. At the end of the day, we get stuck sometimes in our comfort space, and so it was such an inspiring opportunity to see just not women of color come together, talk about their stories, get inspired. We had a booth there where we had recruiters and executive leadership attend. And so it was just good to really sit down and hear people advocate for themselves.
Yes. Was that your first
that was my
SIS
first
Summit?
one. Yeah, that was
It's so awesome, isn't it? I missed it this year, but I've been multiple times. And were you able to, did you participate in panels or anything like that?
I just participated in our booth. So I wasn't, I did attend some of the sessions. So it was good to hear. It keeps me inspired. It keeps me fresh, Good to network, good to talk to women. It was great.
And I do want to, I think people should really take advantage of that because I know like the SIS network is very virtual. And sometimes when we're so used to being virtual, I feel like COVID got us like in the virtual space. But even like with this interview right now, it's just like, it's a difference in face-to-face interaction. And also even within sales, right? So it's coming together as that community in person and you vibe off of each other and you're taking pictures and you're hanging out and doing all the different things. It just makes a big difference. And that can carry you forward throughout the year as the virtual events are being put on. Then, you've made those connections. And then also if they are looking to be hired with SAP, making that personal connection at the summit is really good because then now, you've met someone face to face. And when you go on the job board, you're like, okay, I like their vibe. I would like to work there because I pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I hold a lot of my success to the connections and networking that I've done. You can't do it alone.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. So now that you are in this role, what do you feel like the differences are? Because you were in a leadership role. So tell us the difference between like this marketing director versus you coming into this sales space. Like how different is it? Like, do you have a team? Are you like, what is your role like now?
So I don't have an official team, but I feel like at any corporation, you're always setting an example. And so I feel like every role that you're in, you should, see yourself as a leader. And I feel like that's just kind of my philosophy as anything that I do, or how you do one thing, I always say is how you do most things. And so whether that's having strong communication skills or preparation, and it's not even just preparation in my role, but my advice to other people listening is, if you have an interview coming up, do the preparation, see yourself sitting in that position or working for the organization, what's their mission? How do they work with their customers? What's their product strategy? And so I feel like it hasn't changed too much. I didn't have a team, but I worked with people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, people are inspired by how you show up and the effort that you put in. And so I wouldn't say it hasn't changed much, but
I like that. I mean, I think that if more people thought that way, it would be better for the business, right? Because you take ownership for your part. And we are working collaboratively with a lot of people and cross-functionally in every role, right? I mean, you can't be in sales and not have a relationship with marketing or have a relationship with accounting, and just all these different pieces, because to get that sale across,
exactly,
you got to go call everybody like, hey, can we make sure this is working so that I get it done?
I agree. And you may not have, people that roll up to you as a managerial level, but at the same time, people look up to you to help carry, everything that you do across the finish line. So,
and that networking is key.
It's key.
Because this is a trick, okay? Let me tell y'all. Because when I first started at my company, right, it just so happened that our sales kickoff was in Dallas on my first day. So I'm getting to meet everybody on the first day. So I remember my boss was like, he's like, it's gonna be like drinking water out of a fire hose, right?
Yeah.
And I was like,
Everybody's,
he don't know me, baby, because I networks. Okay,
Yeah.
like I'm about to get everybody's name and number. By the time I left that thing, it was 3 days. I had like 70 new LinkedIn connections. I was going crazy in there, right? And then COVID happened. So we had everything shut down.
Yeah.
I didn't see those people for like almost 2 years. So I needed those face-to-face meetups to build my business over the next year and a half, right? So I do think that we have to keep making those connections internally.
Absolutely.
Because when you call and say, hey girl, can you make sure this gets placed today? It's like, they're like, okay, that's my girl Aries. I
Your
know
brand,
her.
it's so important.
Yeah.
It's like people are human at the end of the day, and they're going to think about who comes to mind when they have headcount or when they are trying to think about someone for a project. Your brand is so important.
Absolutely. And I definitely feel like SAP is a company that has that brand recognition. I know that even when I first joined SIS, they were a part of the partnership then, and the women who were representing SAP then, I was like, let me go look at this job board myself.
I know.
So I do feel like they have already shown that, through just the people that we've even seen just representing SAP, including yourself. So
Absolutely.
what would you say some of your favorite parts of working for SAP is?
I mean, it has to be the culture.
Yeah.
We were actually just named one of the best companies to work for, and so that's always something that kind of draws people in. But it truly is the culture. I work with so many companies from different industries, so many people from different backgrounds, and I don't feel like I'm going into this cold space. I feel like I'm going into a workplace where people are advocating for me. There's growth, there's continuous learning, and there's so many different employee network groups that I can, find community within. So I feel at home. It's a testament that I've been here for almost 6 years, and
Yes.
I see myself here for quite a long time. And so it truly really is an honor to be able to sit here and just talk about, my experience, because I want that for everyone. So,
I love that. Okay, so you're a busy woman. You're working at this company. You got all this going on. You're selling everything left and right. So what's some of the things that you do outside of work that help kind of give you, and I don't like the work-life balance thing, but I do think we need ways to disconnect,
Right.
as well as, just help us with our like mindfulness and things that we do. So what are some of the things that you like to do? I know for me, I like to golf.
Oh, I haven't picked that up, but it's big in sales. Like it's on my next hobby to do. But I'm the same way. I don't like the whole work balance, because with anything in life, like there's a give and a pull.
Yes, exactly.
And so you have to find a way to recognize when, your state of being, like, I don't think that healthy isn't just like an exercise that I do. It's a state of being from my mental, my emotional, my physical. And so it's something that I try and actively, put effort in towards daily. I love to work out. I do Pilates. I like boxing. I've recently just started walking a lot. And so, the weather's kind of in that perfect like fall.
Yes.
So
I love it. Everybody's doing Pilates nowadays.
Everybody's doing Pilates.
I'm trying to get in there.
My girls do Pilates.
Look, I took my first like Legree class with one of my friends because she's like an advocate. And I actually did really good because I've been doing a lot of strength training.
Okay.
So that helped me, because she was like, "Had you done this before?" The instructor, I was like, "No." She was like, "You were doing good." I'm like, I was shaking, but I felt it, So I do think that's a good way.
Yeah,
to
just do what you like. I mean,
Yeah.
movement is movement at the end of the day. I have to mix it up too, because even though I do Pilates today, I might be doing strength training tomorrow. I have to keep it fresh.
So what would you say right now for your, at SAP, you're here and you're in this role now, like where do you see yourself? Are there some goals that you have that you're looking to, reach within there? Are there like some awards or anything you're trying to get, or what are you seeing for yourself?
I mean, I want to consistently perform in the role I'm in. So I want to prove that, year after year, I can continue to drive revenue. And I also want to just do more things like this. I want to be a part of organizations like Sisters in Sales, and I want to do more in my community. My father's from Ghana, West Africa, and so I'm a part of this organization that he was a founding member of, the AWA Association. So I wanted to help just do more of service. I feel like for me, that's what leadership is. That's serving. And so if I can continue to do well in sales and then also kind of step into more leadership roles, then that for me would be would be the incredible like,
Yes.
next
And I
step.
love that because I do believe that volunteering is a great way for people. Like, let's just say your role at your company right now is not a leadership role, like you were saying, like,
Yeah.
yes, but you can gain those skills volunteering. You know,
Right.
I was the president of a women in tech organization here in Dallas for a while, and that helped me so much to, you know, having to drive a team, and it was a team of volunteers. So, you know, it's like they're not getting paid. It's even harder
Right.
when you're dealing with something like that. But that gives you those skills that you could bring now. You could add that to your resume. Now you have leadership skills. You
agree.
actually do have something to bring to the table. So I do think that people you know, should take advantage of those opportunities as well. So that's
Yeah.
really good. That
And
you're
just
doing
because
that.
there's not a program within your organization, like you can be an advocate to get something started, you know, if you have an interest. I don't always feel like you have to separate, you know, your career and your personal life. Like you can kind of
Absolutely.
blend those two together to make it a place where you really find enjoyment in what you do day to day.
So that means that you're going to have to start doing some of these talks at
I know.
SAP, girl.
I
I
know.
was telling Dela that I do this at my company a lot. And even internally, they ask me to host different events and things like that. But for me, it's healthy because I love to do it. And it just kind of helps me keep my chops, you know, together.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you were mentioning that you haven't done it. But I think that would be really good if you
I
could
need to do
start
more.
doing it. Because you're good. You're
I've
just so
done
good.
one. I was able to do a session at one of our sales kickoff programs, and it was a conference in Vegas, and we're having it this year in San Diego, just to talk about the success that I've had with some of my deals. And I feel like it was really fun at the end of the day. You know, you don't get to hear what other people are doing. And so it was nice to get to talk about like the best practices and learn from each other. But I'm going to definitely
See, we got to look.
Yeah.
We put her on camera, y'all. She got to do it now.
I know.
So, okay. So what would you say some of your, you know, as we kind of get more to wrapping up, like what are some things as far as like advice that you would give like someone who was just saying, hey, I'm interested in transitioning into sales? Like what would you say your top advice would be? Like, are there any books that inspired you or anything that kind of would be good for them to just like think about and get started with?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like preparation and not being stuck where you're at, you know, continuing to keep educating yourself, keep putting yourself out there. It's all the things that we talked about. You know, I think that getting into sales, a lot of people, you know, a lot of people don't know what they want at times. And I think it's an opportunity for you to be open to all things, because when I came into SAP, I wasn't like, I want to be a sales account executive, but me just throwing myself into different experiences and, you know, creating my board of directors and working with different leaders, it opened up so much more than I could see for myself in that moment. So just continuing to do the work, the preparation, but at the same time, be open to the unknown, you know, and try it, go for it.
You got to take a risk.
You got to take risks. Like sales is high risk, but it's high reward. And that's with anything in life.
Yeah. And I do think there is a certain type of personality of person, whether you're introvert or extrovert, it doesn't matter actually in sales, but you do have to be a person willing to take a risk, you know.
You have to put yourself out there.
You have to because also, you know, if you're selling, you know, people are going to say no sometimes, a lot of times. So more times than yes, right? Yeah. But once you kind of get used to that and understand what your goals are, then you get more, you're okay with just putting it out there. And okay, if they say no, okay, well, we move on to the next thing and we keep going.
You can't take it personal. You can't take it personal.
So you do have to be, you know, have to have that risk-taking piece. I would say that would be like a key point, you know. And sometimes people just get to that point in their career. So maybe you are not a risk taker right now, so you're not ready. But there'll be a time where you're like, you know what, forget it. I'm willing to do it right now, you know.
Absolutely. And when you are ready, you know, you'll have a community around you.
Absolutely. Sisters in Sales, I found them at a time where I just took the risk to come into sales. I was not the person taking the risks. I was not ready to do that. I was really just content in my little world, and I took a career pause. And I was like, you know what, this actually would be a good time to take that risk, because I took a break for like a year. And I was like, what the heck? I was already,
yeah.
So it was perfect. And then I found SIS right at that time. And they've been a great community for me to support me through learning something new and, just feeling more confident as a salesperson. So I love it. And I'm so glad that SAP is a partner.
I know.
Yes. And so I just want to, actually, as we close, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. Do you feel like we covered everything? Is there anything that...
I feel like we covered everything. And, it doesn't have to end here, reach out to myself and Ariel and, make sure you're on the job board. There's so many opportunities that are posted today and will be posted at this ever-changing market. You always have to be on the lookout.
Yes. So make sure that if you are interested in SAP, you go to the SIS job board. They have plenty of jobs there listed. If you're not a member, become a member so you can have access to all of these things that we are doing and the SAP is also doing with SIS. So we just want to thank you so much for your time today, Dela. And I'm excited. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you so much.
Look, I might be on the job board myself.
I know, girl. Come on over.
All right, y'all.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.